Evil Bloodlines. Our story begins here. This is Kathleen Maddox. In her arms is her child. Nobody knew then, but this bastard child of hers would grow up and become Charles Manson, evil seed. This is the story of Manson and the evil bloodlines. That's Jimmy Hook on guitar, Daniel Arguelles, the Manson family member and son of Charles Manson on lead vocals, and that was Stoner Van Houten's Family Jams, and it was recorded by a guy named Chris, who was there. And Daniel was singing for the family. He was singing for the family. Hulu came out with their new series today, or a few days ago. I just watched it the other day. That's why I said today. It's been a few days now. I've seen some reviews before I ever watched it, but I don't really pay attention to them anyway. I'm going to give it... I thought it was, honestly, deep down, I thought it was pretty good if what the fact is they were trying to destroy Daniel's mental health. And they were trying to prop this little girl up to make her look like she, just as well as everybody else that's come into this thing ever since this estate case started happening, how Manson's evil and they're going to try to change that evil. Oh my, it's just a never-ending story of give me a break. But this is Daniel singing, and we're going to talk about all kinds of people today. As you've seen, we started off with Manson's mother. She was the first one that started this by telling Manson who his dad was and then who his dad wasn't. It started this whole confusion of now everybody in the whole family don't know who their dad is, don't know anything about it, and they're all evil. Evil bloodlines. Today, here, Backporch. My credentials? My credentials are I'm a writer pretending to be an author. And the day that starts off this story, I was a normal dude with a ponytail, pretending to be a lawyer. Yeah, and I got away with it. I didn't just get away with it. It was legal at the time because I didn't have a lawyer. And I walked into this whole Manson Estate thing. What is this Manson Estate thing? This Manson Estate thing is me and Jason and Michael Brunner and Nancy and Daniel. And a list goes on. And we're going to go through that list of people today that are involved in this Manson Estate and what the Manson Estate requires you to do. One of the things it requires you to do is it requires you to find everybody that was related to Charles Manson and notify them that there are two wills in court right now and they need to come in and listen to them. But first they need to prove that they're related. And that can become the difficult part when it comes to court. And we're going to get into that today because I think this girl's documentary is a little bit premature, and she didn't really tell all the things that are happening with her dad right now. So when you go up to that window and you file that you want to be the estate, one of the requirements of the estate, actually all the requirements of the estate are just to pay money, basically is what it is. But one of the requirements of this, the estate is you have to file a notice in local newspaper. My local newspaper happened to be the LA Times, which is pretty expensive. Each one of these filings in the newspaper. Costs about $535, and they require you to do 3 of those things. 1, 2, and you can see right here in it, filed by me, Michael Channels, in Superior Court of California of Los Angeles, right here in the LA Times. And it happened to turn up on Love Is right beside it, which I thought was kind of appropriate. Because you gotta love this to be able to pay for this. This was my first day in court, and that day there was nobody there. It was just me in front of a judge. I was pro per, so I was actually an attorney. Well, I was acting like one. That's what pro per means. It doesn't mean I'm an attorney. It just means I'm pretending like I'm one. Just like I'm pretending here that I'm an author. That day I was pretending, and I was actually legally pretending like I was an attorney. And there was 2 other attorneys right beside me. They weren't mine. They were also trying to represent the estate on behalf of, basically they were hired by that guy, Zach Baggins, and they were probably just going to come in, sweep in, take all Manson's stuff, put it on display, and give Jason a few dollars for it. But Jason wasn't even mentioned, really. It was just 2 lawyers representing the estate, or trying to. And here's me, over here pretending like I'm a lawyer. And the judge is like, hey man, I like this guy pretending like he's a lawyer. We're going to let him stay. So that's how I got there. First day. Second day, that's when the people started showing up. All these kids. And it wasn't even his granddaughter. She's way down the road. Way down the road. Because another granddaughter showed up first. Let's show you her. Yeah, that's a good time to show you her. The other granddaughter. My grandfather is Charles Manson. And my name is not Sophia. It's somebody else. Okay, before we get into the many lovers and children and grandchildren of Charles Manson, we should probably get into Charles Manson himself. Because from what Manson told me about himself, from what the paperwork tells me about Manson, from what Bugliosi told us about Manson, I don't think anybody knows who Manson really is. We were always led to believe that Manson was born, but this comes from Bugliosi, of course. We were always led to believe that Manson was born no name Maddox. But look, he was born Charles Mills Maddox. That was all a lie. But then if we look at another birth certificate that also comes out of Ohio, we can see that Bugliosi changed the story a little bit. It wasn't no name Maddox, it was Charles Mills Maddox. He was actually born no name Manson. Full name of child, Manson. That's it. No name Manson. But we were led to believe it was no name Maddox. Are you in some Mandela effect right now? Or were they lying to you? Were they lying to you the whole time? Here it is so you can see it better. Full name of child. No name Manson. I wasn't even covering anything up on this. I want you to see the whole paper. The whole birth certificate. No name Manson. But they led us to believe it was no name Maddox. Why'd they do that? So let's take a look at what Charles Manson had to say. April the 2nd, 2002. In 2002, I asked Charles Manson about his family, about his relatives, about anybody in his family who might come looking for me because of that will. And he wrote me back a little bit about his family. And it's right here. And he starts off with his dad, William Manson. My dad, William Manson, I was told he died in the war. A lot of people gone. Me? The name because Mom went to prison. Grandma was a Bible hell girl. Never lied, smoked, drank, or went to the movies. TV came out. Grabbed her, stopped her heart on a Tom Mix movie. I got a sister in Spokane and a son in Palms, California, but he don't know it. Brunner had a child. I claimed them all. Leona Manson, 1959, had a son, Charles Manson Jr., in Denver, Colorado. I wondered about him. She's a tricky witch. I called her Wonder Woman. We got a blood test and papers, but never got married. She just forged the papers and filed for a divorce to get custody of my son and guitar, John Denver. She's a tricky witch. A fella'd pretty near need to be from the holler, you know, to understand them fiddlesticks that Manson character's got going on. That's how most of the people would say it from back where I came from, in the holler. And they should have been able to understand it. Let me learn you something. I'm going to learn you something about what he just said about John Denver that most people would play off as, oh, here, Manson, he's going crazy right here. But anytime that you hear him in an interview or anything say something about John Denver's divorce court, I'm going to learn you something today. But first, this is a message from our sponsor. Sorry about that, but it has to be. No, this is a commercial. This is a commercial now. I'm the guy that holds the cue card. Look at me. Don't look at the camera. And I need you to read it like this. Instead of channel 9 down here, I want you to put in the Backporch Tapes when you read it, okay? Read it like this. And I'll be holding it the whole time so that you can see it. So, and the camera's right there too. So if you look at this and read this, it'll look like you're looking into the camera when you're doing it. And read it just like this. Hello, I'm Judge William B. Keane. Join me for the drama of Divorce Court, premiering Monday night at 11:30 on the Backporch Tapes. Just like that. Can you do it? This is a rare piece of television history from 1986. They used to use cue cards like this. They used to hold them up, and this one was being held up. Seemingly, this has nothing to do with Charles Manson, but everything in the world to do with Charles Manson after I show you. Judge William B. Keane was premiering. He was becoming famous now. He's getting his own TV show, and it was called Divorce Court. So every time that you hear Manson talk about Divorce Court, read between the lines. He's talking about Judge William B. Keane. And every time he talks about Denver Divorce Court, he's talking about Leona. The John is just added in there for fun. This one's signed to one of the producers of that television show. It says, to Diego, best regards from the Judge, William B. Keane, March 6th, 1986. It's really hard to get autographs, judges from autographs. Well, I guess unless you're getting a summons or a subpoena or a search warrant. But that's where all that stuff Manson talks about divorce court. Now you understand a little better. Now you're becoming a hillbilly, my friend. From being in court, I can tell you one thing court does. Every single person that comes into it, it has a good way of humiliating you. This is Michael Brunner. He came next. And man, I can tell you another thing about court. When you've got relatives, they don't act like relatives in court. They're like bloodthirsty. They're at each other's throat. They don't care if he is a grandson. He ain't the grandson. I'm telling you, he's not the grandson. They don't care if he is the son. Well, they proved in court that he ain't the son. It got dirty. Here, let me show you a little bit of that. And let me also bust another myth that Bugliosi had y'all believing that Manson named his kid after a character in a book. A man from a stranger land. We all fell for it. Every one of us. Hook, line, and sinker. Oh, we got quite the collection going on here. We might as well add more to it. Let's add in Michael Brunner, because he was the second one to pop up in this case after Jason. And then Matthew came after him. But, yeah, Michael, he popped up. And they destroyed him in court. And they said some things about him that I know that they're going to bring up about Daniel, because Daniel, the reason Daniel's even in court is because of Michael Brunner. Because they both match the DNA. And they're going to do the same thing to Daniel that they did to Michael. I'm telling you. And one of the first things they hit Michael Brunner with was he was adopted by Elsie and George Brunner. Because he turned in, of course he turned in birth certificates that says Charles Manson's name. We're going to get to that, because they're part of court. They're part of the court record now, so we can now look at the birth certificate that Michael Brunner got when he was born that day on Summit Ridge Drive. He got a birth certificate for that. And his name on it isn't Valentine Michael Manson. Sorry to say, sorry to burst your bubble, but that's the second misconception that Bugliosi had you believing, that this guy was named out of a character out of a book. But we're going to show you now that he wasn't. So what we're looking at now is the birth certificate that Mary Brunner and Charles Manson got for Michael Brunner. But they didn't get it until several months later, as you can see on the birth certificate. They didn't get it until July the 31st. And he was born April 15th, just like you would expect, Topanga Canyon, just like they said. Everything's like they said except for his name. It wasn't Valentine Michael. It was Michael with no middle name, Manson. That's just how it shows up on his birth certificate. It was never Valentine Michael. Oh, he named this kid after this character in this book from Stranger from a Strange Land. That just sounds so appropriate to something if you were going to attach it to a cult leader. But what Manson did name his kid is more appropriate for Charles Manson. I'm going to show you that in a second, because Michael Brunner immediately got baptized when he got adopted. They were like, get this evilness off this kid, baptize him in the name of the Lord. And they show his middle name. And it's something that Manson probably would name his kid. So now we're looking at the baptismal record, the minute that Michael Brunner made it to his grandma and grandpa's house, who were the godfather at that point, but they were soon to turn into father and mother, because they adopted him right after this. But as you can see on this paperwork, as his baptismal, his name was Michael Sunstone Manson. And that sounds more appropriate for something that Manson would name his own kid. It just sounds Mansonish. The Valentine, it sounds Bugliosi. Think about it. So as I was saying, one of the first things they hit Michael Brunner with in court was, dude, you gave us the wrong birth certificates. You're adopted. Give us the newest one. And he finally had to do that. I'm not going to show you that because that's the one he uses now. But his parents are his grandparents. He always thought his mother was his sister. Now, that's not the only stipulation unto the reason that he lost. Let's move on to the second page, and this is a pretty critical part here. It says, the descendant, meaning Manson, informed third parties that Brunner was not his biological child. That's important. Because also, Mary Brunner, during the trial of Bobby Beausoleil and Gary Hinman, she made the statement, because they asked her, is Charles Manson that kid's dad? And she says, I don't know who the father of my child is, but Charles Manson's on the birth certificate. And as we've seen, Charles Manson was on the birth certificate, but Mary Brunner said that to the media and to the court. So that's really a touchy spot to be in if you're Michael Brunner and you're now trying to prove that Charles Manson is your dad. And you've seen in the letter that we wrote, that Charles Manson wrote to me about his kids, he said Mary Brunner had a child and he claimed him. And he claimed them all. So, Michael Brunner just basically had to give up. Because short of having, dragging his dad in there and them doing blood tests against each other, he had no leg to stand on. So I guess this is a good time to get to the part where Sophia was a bit premature on that Disney Hulu thing, because it's really hot in here. It's like 107 degrees outside, and it's really hot in here, and I need to close this thing up. But the premature thing of this whole Disney video thing is she came in very at the beginning and says, my dad sent his DNA into one of these DNA companies, and it came back that we were related to Mike. Who's Mike? He's our uncle. Does Mike know who his dad is? And he said, yeah, I know who my dad is. It's Charles Manson. But he couldn't prove it in court. This was after the fact, too. This was after the fact that he already tried to prove it in court that his dad was Charles, and he couldn't do it there. You can do it out in reality, because people believe anything. They'll believe your name's Valentine Michael if you tell them enough times. But he couldn't do it in court. And she's on TV saying, we're all evil now because we're all related. And her dad is still in court. And you don't think they're... So, Mr. Arguelles, let's ask you the same questions that we asked Mr. Brunner. What's father's name on your birth certificate? At any given time, did that man adopt you throughout your lifetime? Mr. Arguelles, did you know that the defendant informed third parties that Brunner was not his biological child? Mr. Arguelles has never sought to determine his biological paternity, although he has decades to do so. Mr. Arguelles stated in one or more interviews words to the effect that he had felt no connection to the descendant and resisted any contact to the descendant. So, Mr. Arguelles, let me get this fact straight. Isn't it right that you cannot prove that you're Charles Manson's son? You might be able to prove that you're Michael Brunner's uncle, but you can't prove you're Charles Manson's son without a direct connection of DNA to Charles Manson. Are we correct here, Mr. Arguelles? Good. That's what I thought. So, Your Honor, Mr. Arguelles comes into the courtroom and he tells us that he's Charles Manson's son. But he can't prove it to the court. He can only prove it to Disney. And he's done that. He's done a fine job of that. But with the court, you would agree, there's just not enough evidence, Mr. Arguelles. So yes, it was very premature of her to go on to Disney and throw her dad under the bus like that, when her dad hasn't even proved in court yet that he's Charles Manson's son. I mean, he could be Bobby Beausoleil's son. Who knows? He could be Joe Schmo's son from Denver Divorce Court. Who knows? Nobody knows. You got to have a match with the old daddy. And Jason did a fine job of getting rid of that as fast as he possibly could. Burned it up to smithereens. Gave it to people to put tattoos in their face. So you don't even have that anymore, do you? So, come September, Mr. Daniel has a bench trial. He gets to go and explain all these things that Michael Brunner got ate alive with. So, you're dealt this hand. Hippie cult leader's son. How you play this hand? Hippie cult leader's son. Mass murdering dad. So, how you play this, Daniel? September 1st. In court. We'll find out if Manson really had a granddaughter, I guess. Till then, peace.